Hello everyone. When I got asked to come and talk here, I was really excited because I think it's a great sort of group that we've got going here. And I quite like talking about my career, but unfortunately today I can't. Well, if you want to ask questions about kind of silly cricket stories and I know who I've seen drunk and fallen out of a bus or whatever, that kind of stuff, you can say that for later. But I'm going to talk about a little bit about kind of what I've learnt through being involved in sport and through kind of learning about psychology in sport. So tell you a little bit about myself. I made my debut for England when I was 19, and I've been part of a sports team for as long as I can remember. And I played in 49 matches for England, taking 59 wickets and scoring more than 1,200 runs. And I was lucky enough to be able to train like a professional, rubbing shoulders with Olympians at Bisham Abbey. Although with some of the tall rowers, I'm not sure I could quite reach their shoulders, but you know what I mean. I bumped into England captains and legends at Lord's. I've toured all over the world, and I've won the Ashes twice in the process. And being involved in international sport, I've learned a lot about myself and others that can be applied in business. I'm not going to spell out exactly how it applies to your business or your relationships with others, but I hope that you'll see some parallels with what I'm talking about. As an international cricketer, preparation can make those small differences that amount to big things. So it could mean I might hit a six instead of being caught on the boundary, or I'd be able to run a quick single rather than getting run out, that kind of thing. Things that matter in cricket. As I'm sure you know, preparation is key in any walk of life. So tell me, why do you think that teams perform better at home? They're relaxed, crowd support. Feel more comfortable, yeah, exactly, those kind of things. So basically, they feel familiar. There's support behind them. They feel like they've been in that situation before. So to recreate this, we need to actively prepare to try to make situations and environments more familiar. So a good example might be to use a technique of visualization. So say you've got an important meeting or presentation or pitch. So why not spend time imagining kind of the room, who's in there, how it will smell, what will the table and chair look like, how it will feel, what will you be looking at when you're talking. Anything that kind of can make that pressure environment seem a little bit more familiar. You can visualise being successful in that environment. So you might not be able to picture the meeting room or whatever room you're going to be. I couldn't picture that I was here, but I was obviously, I was earlier when I was preparing, I was picturing the situation I was going to be in. So you can picture being successful in that environment, feeling good, feeling focused, feeling relaxed, saying what you need to say in the right way. So before a game, I would go out to the middle with my bat. I'd literally stand at the crease as if I was facing a bowler. I would imagine that bowler running in to bowl. I'd imagine playing shots, but then I'd also literally with my bat I'd play shots, and I'd imagine that ball going between the fielders. I'd imagine that ball going over the boundary, so that when it came to the situation when I actually came to do it in real life, I felt a bit more comfortable because I'd seen the view, I'd seen what it's like being out in the middle, see the crowd or see the advertising hoardings, see that environment. So it just made it a little bit more familiar. And it just helps. If you can make something feel a bit more familiar, you can feel a bit more comfortable in that environment. And you can also remember previous successes. So I'm sure lots of people find this in lots of walks of life and in lots of sports, but there were certain grounds that I'd go to and I'd feel really good because I know that I'd done well before at that ground, or I know that I'd done well against certain players or that kind of thing. So you can have those feelings in your life, whether it's in business or other things that you're doing. And to recreate pressure, which is quite difficult to do really, because there's no such pressure as kind of being in that moment and having to perform and having to do what you need to do at that exact time and how much it matters. But in terms of my training, we'd add noise, we'd add distractions, we'd make the environment hostile, we'd enforce penalties for failure. So you could kind of almost do similar in if you need to create a pressure environment for yourself. It's interesting that, I don't know your name, sorry. Simon's going to talk about teamwork because I'm going to talk a little bit about being in a team, but I'm sure lots of you will work in a team every day, and even if you don't work as part of a team and you work alone, there's going to be somebody that you need to collaborate with to achieve your goal. And for me, one of the most important things in a team is role clarity. So if you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing, then it's impossible for you to be working towards the same goals as everybody else. I mean, it doesn't matter how talented you or they are, if you're kind of not on the same track with the shared aims, then you're wasting that talent. And not only is it critical to know your own role, but it's also important to know others' roles and how you need to interact with each other to sort of reach that shared aim. And also, I think, gives you confidence. If you know each other's roles, I think it gives you confidence in your own team. A team is full of individuals, and how those individuals interact and are managed can make a really huge difference to that team. Now, I'll give you an example of a situation that I came across. I was warming up to play a game in Melbourne. It was an England warm-up game, and it was against the young Australian side. So we were just warming up for the tour. I was just about to go out to bat, so I went into the nets to get a bit warmed up, get kind of mentally switched on, feel bat on ball, feel kind of confident before I went out to bat. And our relatively new England coach took me into the nets, and I just expected it to be kind of a normal preparation so I could feel a bit confident, ready to go out to bat in a minute. And so he sort of started to challenge me by sort of challenging me with a really difficult batting drill. And this frustrated me because I knew as a player that I needed to prepare in a way that I knew was right for me, and that I needed to just feel bat on ball and get some confidence so that I was mentally ready to go out to bat for England. And then he went on to really challenge me. So not only was he getting me to do a really difficult drill that kind of I didn't really know the purpose of, he also went on to challenge me by criticising my batting and telling me some negative things that he could see about the way I was playing. So after that, for me, and sort of with the way that my character is, I felt there was no point going out to bat, and I actually wondered why he'd even picked me, to be honest. But he did something similar to one of my teammates before she went out to bowl, and he told her that she wasn't bowling well and he didn't like the way she was doing certain things. And because she's a very different character to me, that spurred her on, and she thought, well, I'm gonna bloody show him because he's talking rubbish. And so it kind of spurred her on to prove herself even more. But it's quite interesting that for me, because that coach was very new, he needed to try and gauge a little bit more about the different personalities within the team, because you can realise that a few words can work brilliantly with one person but have a completely opposite effect on another. So in sport, there's lots of talk of mental toughness. So mental toughness is something you'll see most when things aren't going to plan. So in cricket, because even in the shortest format of the game, there's a lot of kind of natural slowness and lots of kind of pauses. There's lots of opportunity for the mental side to really come into the game, both positively and negatively. So when you're waiting to bat, there's lots of room for all sorts of thoughts to jump into your head. When I made my test debut for England, it was against South Africa, and I waited for 4 long hours to bat whilst the batting pair in front of me put on a massive partnership. And to be honest, 4 hours isn't even that long in Test cricket to have to wait to have your turn. But as you can imagine, I was sitting there nervous in the pavilion, getting the infamous pad rash. But once you get out into the middle, there's still a lot of time for that little devil to jump on your shoulder and tell you about your insecurities. And the biggest thing I've learned from cricket is the importance of critical moment control, that there's always going to be a moment in a match or a situation that defines the outcome of that match or situation, whether it's in business or in sport. So if you think about your work life and a situation where you've had to make an important decision, the critical moment control is the ability to make decisions at that point, that specific point, under pressure. First of all, you have to be able to identify that specific point. It might be a gut feeling, or it might be a specific cue that you know is the point that you have to make that decision. But when you know when it's arrived, you need to take action. And I think that sometimes in high pressure situations, it's easy to kind of get caught up in the gravity of it all. But actually, the best thing to do is to focus on that specific task rather than the overall gravity of it all. Although that's very difficult to do sometimes, because naturally you will kind of get swept up in all the emotion. But even an example from cricket might be in the World Cup final. Imagine I need to score 1 run from 3 balls, which hopefully most of you will know shouldn't be that difficult. Imagine I've already scored more than 50, so I'm batting really well, I'm feeling really good. It isn't really a huge task. but the situation is huge. I could win the World Cup final. I could be a World Cup winner. So I need to kind of take a moment to identify that huge situation, identify that big opportunity for me, but almost immediately dismiss it and to concentrate on the fact that I'm playing well and all I need to do is score one, and I've got three balls to score that one run. Now, obviously, I've got that little devil who's come to sit on my shoulder again, and he's telling me, what if I miss it? What if I miss the ball? What if I get out? I can't get out. We might lose. Might lose the World Cup. Don't lose. We can't lose. Don't get out. So I've got this little devil talking to me. But really, I need to just get a grip of the actual reality of the situation, the task that I have to do. And I'm hitting the ball well. I need one run to win, and I've got 3 chances. I've got 3 balls to do it in. So all I simply need to do is I need to focus on that task, concentrate on the ball, hit it, and make the decision whether to run or not. And it's nothing more, nothing less. I think if you focus on that process, that specific task that you need to achieve, rather than the overall gravity of the situation, it can sometimes make it easier to achieve. Now, I'll leave you with one final thought, one kind of good little tip that I got playing cricket. Now, I was a spin bowler, and as a spin bowler, if you bowl a bad ball, it looks 100 times worse than if you're a fast bowler because it's so slow. And it means that you can bowl some very bad balls and it looks terrible and you curse yourself and you get used to being hit over the boundary, and it's just what happens. So as a bowler, I got used to that situation and being hit miles. But what I had to learn to do was to park the negative thoughts that I had about that bad ball that I knew I'd just bowled. Because I used to bowl that bad ball and I'd hold on to that thought. I'd be cursing myself how it wasn't good enough and giving myself a bad time about it for quite a long time afterwards. And the longer I was holding on to that ball, the longer I was thinking about it, I was actually, as we talked about earlier, visualising that bad ball. So no wonder I kept bowling it over and over again, because I was cursing myself about that bad ball that I kept remembering. So one little tip that I got given was to use what they call a black box technique. So basically, if I bowled a bad ball, I'd think, right, okay, I'm going to get that ball, I'm going to put it in my black box, I'm going to put the lid back on, and I visualise like kicking it off the top of a cliff or something. So I kind of completely dismissed that thought so I could move on to the next ball. So perhaps if you come up in a situation where you have a negative thought about your job or your business or something that happens in your life, maybe try the black box technique. Anyway, thank you.